Welcome to the Happy Cabbage Podcast. It's been a little bit since I've done an episode. Probably going to do one of these once a week. But as I've said before, this is a one-take only kind of show. So there is no editing. There is no going back and redoing this. Whatever I say is what I say, and I'll stick to it until I have to issue a rebuttal or a correction about something dumb I've said. Whatever I was going to say. Anyways, to get started with that, let's just go right into the news. Start with, researchers have figured out that when you say a cat's name, it reacts to the sound of their name. Wow, I can't believe that my tax dollars went into this kind of stuff. No, not my tax dollars because it was in Japan, but, in general. It's dumb. Why would anyone want to research this kind of thing? Because it's a mammal. Pretty much all mammals do that. If there's a sound that they are conditioned to, you beat them upside the head every time you say that name, they're going to be scared not to do anything with that name. They're going to put the tail between their legs, give them a treat every time you say that name, or you say, hey, Billy, come here, and you teach them to come to you every time you say Billy, and you'll scratch their belly or something. That's just how it works. It's not that they innately know what you're saying. It's about them knowing what that sound means. It's just like my dog. My dog doesn't know what actual words mean. They know the inflection, and they know the familiarity of a sound means something. Like if I say bad dog, it knows I'm probably going to smack it upside the head. If I say good dog, it knows I'm going to pet it. If I say house, Bella, she knows to go into her cage inside our house. If I say outside, she knows to go outside. It's just, that's the way it is. So I don't understand why there was so much money that went into a study focusing on cats and whether or not they can react to the sound of your name. So I pity the Japanese people for studying that while totally neglecting the fact that they have a huge birth rate crisis where no one is being born. But let's move on from that. So Prince Harry wants Fortnite banned. Yes, that's correct. Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, has said that the game creates an addiction to keep you in front of a computer for as long as possible. So it is irresponsible. And you know what? I agree with them. I think the game is completely irresponsible for making games just for children. That's completely addictive. I think it's wrong. I think it's morally irreprehensible. But you know what? It's a crying out loud. It's a free market. It's an American game. They can do whatever the heck they want to do. Does that mean I think it's right? No. I think it's dumb. I think it's downright stupid that people are actually willing to play this game. Growing up, when I played a video game, I was playing it for the storyline. You didn't buy games that were, you didn't buy games just because it was multiplayer. Very few games were like that. So, Super Mario Kart, even that's got a campaign, but that game's designed just to play with friends that are with you. It's about being social, like Super Smash Bros. That game's totally designed just to be social. Games now that you play online aren't made to be social. They're just made to keep drawing you in and playing 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 until your brain goes, against the wall. When I bought my original Halo games and I bought Pokemon and Mario, Sonic, and I'm blanking on some of the other games like Star Wars Force Unleashed or the Tomb Raider sagas. Those games, we bought those as kids so we could experience this really in-depth and cool story. Now, if I bought a game and it didn't have multiplayer, I probably wouldn't like it. Because in the end, I really like playing multiplayer with my girlfriend or my brother or my sister, whoever it is, sometimes my dad. But I don't like playing that online thing with other people. It feels weird. I don't know this other person, and half the time I know they're probably yelling into the mic about how horrible of a player I am. So I just don't like it. I think it's a little rude. It's impersonable. Impersonal? I don't know if that's a word. But yeah, when I was growing up, the games weren't made to be this way, like completely binge-worthy. Things weren't created to be that way. They were made to be this, a story, kind of like a book. You play it and you get to live in this different universe. You get to do all this different kind of crazy stuff. You get to experience something you can't experience in real life. I always thought that was the purpose of video games. That's why I've always liked campaigns. So certain campaigns like Call of Duty Ghosts and Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, I thought those were fantastic campaigns. I thought the stories were awesome. I thought they were great. I guess I'm a fool because it seems like no one else actually liked those games. But I think like Halo 4 has a really cool story to it. I think even Pokemon's got a really good story behind it. People play it for that story. At least that's why I played Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum of the DS games for Pokemon, was because all the stories came together and they had different nuances. And you can get Giratina and the Arc Pokemon, whatever his name was. But moving on from that, yeah, I get it. Games are made to be addictive now. Should we ban them? No, it's a free market. Look, Fortnite's got I'm giving it 3 months at most before this whole thing's done. Ninja, the dude that's playing all these games, he's done already. You can go to his YouTube channel. That dude is so tuckered out. He's ready to be tucked into bed and never wake up again. He doesn't even respond the way on his live chats like he used to when he first started playing. It's just a nuisance now. All right, that's just the way the game is. You can't binge something forever. Eventually, yeah, years from now, PUBG or Minecraft, Roblox, and this Fortnite stuff, it's going to come back, and people are going to play it again. Because when you binge something, you stop after a while because you're like, oh, I'm so tired of this. But you'll come back years later, you'll binge it for a much shorter of a time, and then you'll leave it, and then you come back, and it just keep going and going and going in a cycle like that until you just have no desire whatsoever to play it again. But should we ban it? No. Totally not for that. Moving on to the next part of things. This is skateboarding couple defaces gravesite of former President Gerald Ford and Betty Ford. I am extremely disappointed in the skateboarding community for this. Well, I guess I shouldn't say community. The two morons that decided to wear all black and deface a gravesite to a president. First off, he was from Omaha. I've been to his birthplace. All right, cool, pretty place. Not that, I'm biased just because he's from Omaha. I might be a little bit. But this guy was a national leader for our country. He would have been alive when these kids were alive, But I think that's really wrong. I think going on people's grave sites and just messing with them, that's just wrong. It's putting honor of people. Gerald Ford didn't even want to be president. He someone died, someone got moved. I can't quite remember how that all worked, but then, bam, he becomes president I think he became president after Nixon resigned. So then, bam, he was just the president. He didn't want to be there, but he was, and he did the best he could. But yeah, I think that is completely just wrong, and I'm mad at these skateboarders because they're the morons that always put a bad twinge or whatever you want to call it to our community, to skateboarders. Everyone looks at us as morons, dope heads. I mean, a lot of us are like that, but these people, they're the idiots that do that, and it makes me upset. Because then when I go somewhere and I'm holding a skateboard, people look at me as a derelict. They look at me as some lesser human that didn't graduate high school, doesn't have a job. That's how everyone views us because of morons like this. And moving on, a poll done in Russia reveals that 1 in 5 wish to immigrate to other countries, especially Western countries. So, yeah, get ready. If you guys think there's a Russian collusion, oh boy, you're going to love it when the Russians come to America and start voting in our elections, even though the Mueller report revealed that our lovely President Trump has done nothing in the form of collusion. Again, moving on, it looks like Target is going to raise its minimum wage to $13 from $12 that they're currently at. Now, the question is whether or not they can really afford this. It seems like, as of right now, that Target's doing just fine financially, but I don't know if they'll actually be able to do that $1 an hour raise. Wow, yeah, that all sounds fine and dandy for some people that, oh, well, it's just $1. I think Target employs like nearly 5,000 people, somewhere around that, probably more. That's 5,000 people. So 5,000 times 10, that's $50,000 an hour. And then you're going to pay him 11. Well, that's $55,000. You're just going to bump it up another dollar, but that's another $1,000. like every time you do that. My math is completely off, I'm sure, but imagine paying that. That's millions upon millions of dollars extra that you're paying yearly. So this signals to me that either Target's trying to get in the good graces of the public, or they're just trying to get better people. So there's two types of ways of doing this. Well, I guess there's three. One, going massive debt because you're going out of business, so you might as well go out of business with style and go bankrupt in the end. Two is you're doing financially amazing. Like, you have so much money in reserves that you're just going to start paying people more money to do a better job. And three is the most likely that I'm seeing in this, because it says it'll be $15 an hour by the end of 2020, that Target is actually cutting back their workforce. This is my prediction, because this is the way it usually works for all these places. Target is going to cut back their workforce. So from 10 people, it's going to go down to like 7 people. Now, the money they saved from those people that got laid off, fired, whatever, their salaries can be split among everyone else and give everyone an extra $1 an hour. Eventually, they'll keep doing this until there's a big amount of employees that have gone down to a little amount of employees, and they'll be doing much more jobs. But the thing is, they'll be paying you more, and in the long run, Target will be saving and making more money than they will have to be spending to all these minimum wage workers. So by 2020, yeah, $15 an hour sounds about right. But there's going to be a whole lot of issues in different states, like in Illinois. Somewhere around 2020 or 2025, Illinois wants to get the $15 an hour minimum wage. I don't think that's going to get anywhere near that. I think it's going to collapse, because if your minimum wage at McDonald's and Target are the same, no one's going to want to work at either or. So Target's going to have to bump it up to $20 an hour, but that's going to make everything go broke. So either Target pulls out of Illinois cuts that bill, or Target's going bankrupt. Those are some of my choices for what might happen. Moving on, it looks like Brad Paisley is breaking grounds on a free grocery shop in Nashville. Now, I can't recall where it was, but there's a free grocery store for the Salvation Army came up with and has completed and has been successful. And I think this may just be a little bit of a ripoff from that. Who knows? But again, moving on, it looks as if that poor diets are linked to 1 in 5 deaths globally. Now, that's a lot of people. All right, now, I'm not saying I eat fantastic. I'm trying to get back on the diet I'm supposed to be eating. The last time I spoke to anyone who was not a dietitian, I'm supposed to be eating a light paleo diet. I have an autoimmune disease, so, I'm just slowly eating myself from the inside out. So I'm supposed to be eating a lot healthier stuff, not fast food kind of fats, but the avocado kind of fats. So I've been eating lots of avocado toast, like the millennial my sister is. I am joining her ranks. I do quite like avocado, so I have just been doing that, making a lot of avocado bread with chips. I eat a lot of pineapples and apples and vegetables and whatnot. But I mean, we're crying out loud. Globally, 1 in 5 deaths are because of poor diet. All right, I can't. This is where, when these kind of studies come out, and I hear everyone cry and cry and cry that the world is going to die because there's not enough food, there's overpopulation. This right here proves it. The reason food is unhealthy is because it's so mass-produced. All the pineapples and whatever fruits you want to get are great and fine and dandy, and they have some nutritional value, I suppose. If they're processed in a can, they're not good for you. In the same way that a natural, Dole pineapple is from Hawaii. That has better nutrition for you than just a can of pineapple. All right, because that's processed. A lot of the food out there is processed, but you can mass market that stuff. You can make the GMOs or whatever you want to do. You can genetically modify all these foods, and you can mass produce the stuff like crazy. Corn today is gigantic compared to corn from 1910 or even the 1960s. So we can feed the entire world, and we are. But this is why 1 in 5 deaths globally are linked to poor diet. Now, again, this might not totally just include like fast food and dining out, but I'm sure a lot of it has to do with just poor sanitary types of food. A lot of the pictures going with these articles from Reuters, Yahoo Times, International Business Journal, and Time, I already said Times, are showing a lot of fast food kind of things. But I think it probably has more to do with unsanitary food than just fast food in general. Now I know in it says there's this. Gosh, what am I trying to say? The articles are saying that there's a warning that overconsumption of sugar, salt, and meat was killing millions of people. This just seems really basic, like common knowledge that there's an inadequate nutrition, right? There's a lack of food, all right? That's it. There's a lack of food, and you want food, all right? Well, there's going to be inadequate nutrition if you want mass food at that scale. Now, if you want less food but more nutritious food, less people are going to get fed. More people are going to go hungry because you can't mass produce healthy, organic things. You can mass produce things that are, in general, filler foods. Like burgers from McDonald's or just cardboard. It's a filler food. I love McDonald's, though. I love fast food. I think it's fantastic. I think it's one of the greatest things America ever invented. But the truth is, it's not nutritious whatsoever. And people need to realize that sugar, salt, and meat are, basically going to kill you. You can't overconsume salt, but we put salt on everything because it's a good bitter and sweet taste that just adds that bit of tang, can even something out or make it better, or sometimes, a lot of time, make it worse. And sugar is a huge killer. We should not be eating sugar. I mean, I think we should rather be eating more salt in our diet than we have been sugar. I mean, the water we get from the gas station now that's just a little bit flavored, it says all natural, still has sugar in it. The cookie you're going to eat has sugar. Your burger has sugar in it. Your apple now has sugar in it. Everything has sugar in it, and sugar has been revealed for decades of studies to be just as addictive as cocaine and heroin. It's just toxic. We shouldn't even be putting that stuff in our bodies to the extent we are. Like, everything in moderation is the way life is supposed to be. All right, just a little bit of sugar, a little bit of salt. That's it. We don't need all these crazy amounts of food, and I don't understand why people are dying of the poor diet in the way that they are. If it's just linked to sugar, salt, and meat, I think it's about poor sanitation and bad meal prep than anything else. Probably people are taking bad meat, just throwing a crap load of salt and sugar on it and eating it. 1 in 5, that's there's like 8 billion. That's like 20% of all deaths worldwide are because of poor diets. Now, you be the judge of it yourself. I don't know anything about this. I'm just basically reading news headlines to you and giving my opinion off of them. But here's the funny joke about that. That is one of the worst it's the single worst way to even read the news. People should always read the entire news article instead of just reading the headlines, because you'll never get the full story if you just read the news headlines. In other news headlines, the Mormon Church repeals ban on the baptism for children of LGBT parents. Cool, I guess. The Mormon Church has always been quite controversial because it is a weird religion. Something I've said before to people in my life is I know there are Salvationists going to heaven, I know there are Catholics going to heaven, I know there are Mormons going to heaven. I don't know where God's grace begins or ends. I don't know how it all works. But what I do know is that there are certain people who definitely believe in God, and as long as, John 3:16, you believe in that, I think you're probably good to go. All the little stuff in between, God works out in the end. It's not really up to us to debate about. But the Mormon Church has always had a couple issues, especially the whole, not letting black people in until like 1932 or 35. Actually, there's something else happened in the 1950s, like letting women in or something, but that's not right. But yeah, so 2019 will be the year of letting children of LGBT parents be baptized, which is unique. It's different. The church is always changing. I don't necessarily agree with all their policies or anything like that, but hey, it's their life. Live it like you want it, boo-boo. All right, well, I think that's about all the current events that I'm going to get into, here's something I want to get into. Here's a little bit of a rant. A tiny, little bit, itty-bitty rant about YouTube, alright? I don't want to be deplatformed. I'm not big enough or make any money on YouTube whatsoever for YouTube to deplatform me. But I'll just put this out there already. Alright, YouTube, for whatever reason, you guys are like one freaking step ahead of me with every decision and choice I'm going to do on this stupid platform. It's not stupid. I'm sorry. Please don't ban me. I have been making videos for about 7 years now, and every time I'm about to climb up the ladder or do something or, create something new in my own mind, it always falls apart. It never gets anywhere, right? So when I first started, I was like 12 or 13, and YouTube would allow anyone to monetize. Well, I didn't have a bank account at that time, so I couldn't monetize. As soon as I did get a bank account, thinking about linking it and doing all that. You had to be 18 to monetize videos. I was like, okay, cool. I got a couple years. I'll wait till I'm 18. I turn 18, and right when I click to monetize, I get this notice saying that YouTube's going to make it so you have to have 10,000 views for your overall videos. It has to be 10,000 views. And I was like, okay, cool. Now, I did that about 2 years ago. I hit the 10,000 mark for total views watched, and I just crossed the 13,000 views a little bit ago. So I hit the 10,000. I go back, and my monetization file is being reviewed again. Right now it's been almost 3.5 years that it's been in review for monetization. Because after I got the 10,000 mark, they made it to where you have to have 1,000 subscribers and like 10,000 views per year to be monetized. So, yeah, I got 65, 66 subscribers on YouTube right now, so I'm a little bit screwed for trying to get that. And then I easily, if it's taking me 7 years to get 10,000 views from overall channel, I doubt I'm going to be getting 10,000 views every single year. So that sucks. But this is what I'm saying. YouTube is always like one step ahead of me right when I start trying to do something else. They seem to X-nay it. And I just checked my YouTube analytics a couple hours ago, and I was greeted with this notice saying that YouTube Live will no longer be available for online or mobile platforms like iOS and Android unless you have 1,000 subscribers, which really sucks because my main recording equipment is my iPhones. I have one I use, and I have some other ones that are kind of busted up, and they don't really work very well, but they record, and that's all I need them to do. The plan I was going to do with this podcast after a couple episodes, once I get the feeling for it right, and I decide to start doing things the way they probably should be done, maybe in a better way, I was going to make this a live broadcast where I'm doing this as a one take. I don't redo this, I don't edit it or anything like that. I just do it. I speak. That's why there's spaces. That's why the sound isn't always great, and that's why I put a lot of filler words in here, is because I'm on the spot. I'm trying to give you content for free, for crying out loud. So they made it so you have to have 1,000 subscribers to use the live platform. Now, it sucks for me because the camera on my desktop is crap. Yeah, it looks like you're using a potato as a camera, which Corridor Digital proved you can use a potato for a camera. But yeah, so I can't use my iPhone connected to my mic doing a live show, then later on separate the audio. Excuse me. Separate the audio and then put that up on my podcast. And, so that makes it a little more difficult. I was planning on making this really cool broadcast once a week and having a little desk and setup and all this cool little stuff. I was going to learn a lot of tricks of the trade for you guys, for those 66 subscribers out there. But it is what it is. But speaking of the podcast, before I really get into a lot of the in-depth things for the show today, I wanted to encourage you to go check out my podcast. Now, I use the Anchor app to do my podcast, so that's anchor.fm/start if you're curious on starting your own podcast. But if you don't want to start your own podcast and you just want to listen to this podcast, but you don't want to watch it on YouTube, then just go on iTunes, Spotify, Last FM, whatever you want to go on to. Pretty much all podcast networks, I have the Happy Cabbage Podcast on there. And I encourage you to go and listen to it on there, because while I can't make any revenue from YouTube and putting this on here, I can make a small amount of revenue if you listen to the show on any podcast platform. Anchor pays me an ad sponsorship, and currently my ad is for Anchor itself, and it's be much appreciated. The amount of money I can get from just doing the show, which I've always done for free. For almost 10 years, I've been doing this kind of stuff all for free. If the $10, which is my contract with them, if I can just get that will be reinvested into the show. It'll be reinvested into, cutting the cost for getting a new mic or getting a camera or doing something more to make this show better for you. So please, if you have the opportunity, keep watching this, finish it up or whatever, and then just go to your favorite podcasting platform and look up the Happy Cabbage Podcast, and you'll see my ugly mug right there. Just click on it, subscribe, listen to a couple episodes. It's highly appreciated. Hopefully someday I'll be able to add some video support to what I'm doing. But honestly, it's me sitting in a chair, staring at a snowball mic, and yeah, that's about it. So there's nothing really fascinating or beautiful to look at my face while I'm doing this. But if that's something you're into besides my girlfriend, then yeah, more power to you. So moving on from that, I want to talk about college for a bit. Actually, no, I'm going to move that on. I'm going to move that back a little bit. I need to talk to you about jobs. So, I was doing a job for Menards lately. I quit that job. Yeah, I know. If you follow me on YouTube, then you're probably wondering, well, Caleb, you've been doing this whole thing about, getting, you had to resign from the ARC for being a truck driver because your MVR came back not clean, wasn't spick and span, and you've been working really hard to find a job. You end up going to Menards. You seem like you really like it. What happened? Here's what happened. All right, 4 weeks without pay. Right? Actually, it was 5 weeks if you count the week I got paid, because it's the end of the week. So about 4.5 weeks of no pay. The pay sucked in the grand total of things. The working conditions sucked. And how the management and everything else like that did not work the way I think it should. I know this sounds like the most Generation Zoomer thing ever to say, or millennial, whatever I am these days, but that's just the way it is. All right, so they start you off with the job saying, we're going to pay you $11.85 an hour. Well, that's not the complete truth. They're going to pay you $10.85 an hour, and then after, whenever they decide, for me it was a week and a half, they said, well, we'll get you your forklift license. The thing is, I already know how to drive a forklift, but Menards has a special way of doing things. So I had to go do their special program. And then after doing that, I'm able to get my $11.85 bonus. So it's $11.85 an hour. Great, cool. You're now 85 cents more, paying more. You're paying me 85 cents more than I was making at the ARC. And which is fine and dandy. And then on Saturdays, you're supposed to be making $3 more than what you make usually, because Saturdays is their busiest day. So that's $14.85. Cool, great, that's awesome. And the grand total of things, it equals out to about $12.87 an hour is what that whole thing equals out to. So the pay wasn't as fantastic as the way they portray it. And then they do weekly paychecks. But for whatever reason, we have to wait to get you in the system, we have to wait to do this, we have to wait to do that. It took a month, pretty much, to get my first paycheck. And my first paycheck was like $50, because it was only my orientation. Now, there is no way that is worth it, to wait that long to get that check. And then sure, people are going to argue with me, well, if you just stick around a little longer, you're going to start getting normal paychecks. I'm like, you know what, shut up, Gretchen. All right, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to play these games of waiting around to get these paychecks and do this crap and do that. Life is, crap. It's all set up weird. But this is just set up horribly. All right, so getting the pay sucked, having to go through the whole process. Now, my job itself was I worked in a board shed. All right, I walked the equivalent of 10 miles a day while I was at work, in the freezing rain, while it was snowed, at night, in the morning, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was not properly trained basically where anything was. So I got sick of being left by myself for 3 hours in a huge warehouse that's open on both ends. I'm exposed to elements. And you have to wear all the stupid Menards gear after a while. Like, you can't just put on a normal ball cap. Nope, it has to be Menards. But it'll cost you $15 out of your paycheck. And over an hour's work, an hour's pay. So you have to work an hour and a half to pay for a stupid ball cap. Otherwise, you have to work another hour and a half to be able to pay for another one of their crappy products to put on your head or gloves to get. That's something that really bugged me. Was, at a certain point in your life, you can't view things just as money. You have to view them as financial things. If you get paid $10 an hour and there's a TV that costs $100, 10 times 10 is $100. Is working a 10-hour shift for $10 that entire day, 10 hours, is it worth it for that TV? Is that TV worth you working 10 hours straight? No? Great. Save on. Do whatever you want some other time. Right? So an hour and a half of work is not worth it for me to get a ball cap. There's no way that is worth it for me in the slightest. And that's one thing that really bugged me. One of the other things that really bugs me, the last thing I guess that really bugged me, two things. I'm ranting. I know. I'm a little sore about the subject. I'm a little bit stressed. So the scheduling. I got hired on to do 25 to 30 hours a week because I'm doing this full-time class. I'm doing this stats class in college that's kicking my butt, and it's pretty brutal. And I have to devote a lot of time to it. So I can't do a full-time job while I'm doing this class. And they said, cool, we can work with that. So what do? They get me a 45-hour shift for the week. Federally, 30 hours is a full-time job. Menards is saying, no. 40 hours is full-time. No. No. 30 hours federally is like full-time. I'll even stretch to say maybe 32 hours is full-time. But yeah, 30 hours is still considered full-time. All right? But they just kept messing with my schedule so much. And every week it changes. And you have to argue with people to try and get your schedule changed. And you're just like, come on, man. I told you this is what I can work when I got hired on. Leave it at that. But they never do. So the last thing that was horrible about working at Menards was the breaks. Right? They basically encourage you not to take breaks. Why? Don't know. But they completely encourage you not to take breaks. So for your 15-minute break, federally in the United States, when you work 6 hours, you get 30-minute break that's unpaid and a 15 paid break. So anytime you take your 15-minute break, you have to clock out at Menards. Now you cannot clock back in after 15 minutes. Exactly. A second over, you're dinged a point. Now, you can come back anytime in between, but you have to clock out for that time. I've never worked a job that does that, but because I'm studying business, I know how to manipulate people. I understand consumer psychology pretty well. This is a ploy to save the company money, and it's a big liability cost saver. So what happens is that when you clock out and you leave the building, you do something stupid, whatever it is, Menards is not liable for your dumb butt for doing something. They're not liable whatsoever because you're clocked out. Even though it's supposed to be a paid 15-minute break, you're clocked out. You're not being paid, so it's on you. Now, what they claim is that at the end of the week for the pay period, they just throw that 15 minutes back on to your paycheck. But it's so incredibly hard to take a break. From where I'm at, I have to walk all the way inside, and everywhere a Menards employee is at, they have a specific location to clock in and out of that's in their area. I worked outside as in the lumber yard or the board shed, whatever you want to call it. So I did that. So I had to walk inside to the back door, swipe my card. It was 3 minutes to get to my car in the parking lot. So it takes me 3 minutes there. So that already means there's 3 minutes to get back. So there's 6 minutes right there. So 9 minutes. I only have 9 minutes really of a break at that point, and that's really not much of a break, especially if you want to try and get to the front of the store. There's only one bathroom in the entire Menards, so you have to walk all the way to the front of the store if you want to use the restroom. You want to get a snack or whatever like it? Sucks to be you. Lines take like 10 minutes. The amount of time you're given isn't enough time to run to the bathroom. It isn't enough time to really do anything because you cannot be over that 15-minute mark. You get dinged. And whatever reason, they don't want you to take a lunch, but heck yeah, or they don't want to take you to 15, but they really want you to take your lunch. They basically give you a 35-minute lunch break. They want you to take that because it's not paid. They want you not to be there as long as possible, not pay you as long as possible. Anyways, I know I am ranting a little stressed out about that, and I am sore about the subject because the place just, as a place to work, it is the second worst place I've ever worked at. I don't want to sound like just some complaining kid about the subject, but that's what it is. It just sucked. Although Darius, Nick, Archer, Kyle, a lot of the guys I worked with while I was there were really cool, and Tyler too, were really chill, and I enjoyed that experience of working with them. And I wish I knew them a little bit more outside of that work environment, because I definitely hang out with them. I definitely just talk to them in general. But working there sucked. And if you want to work for Menards, go for it. You do you. That might be the place you want to work. But Menards and I did not coincide. So currently, I am looking for other employment. I just want to put that out there. It's just an update. So, yeah. I want to get into talking about what I've been talking about in my my psychology class in college. All right. So I've been taking this psychology class in college lately. It's not challenging or difficult, but the one thing about it that is weird are the discussion forums I have to participate in. And just to clarify, I haven't even bought the textbook for this class because of how confident I am with my knowledge of the material. While I am getting an associate's in business and accounting, my strongest area of study has always been psychology. I've taken every course available in high school for psychology. I've read many books and journals about psychology, and I've even taken a high-level sociology class while I was studying in Canada. Psychology is a pseudoscience. There is no true way of proving the meaning of some of the theories that exist about the mind of other people, but with that being said, there are definitely wrong assumptions out there concerning the psyche. So when I entered these discussion forums for class, I've been a little shocked by what other classmates have to say about each section of the textbook. The textbook that I'm supposed to be reading. I know some of the concepts of psychology that seem like common knowledge for me are not that way for others. I've most likely been studying this subject longer than some of these people have been in college, but many of my classmates are arguing points that simply are not true. For example, one of my classmates made a point that play does not help childhood development. Another classmate added that playgrounds of the modern age are the single best place for children to learn and develop skills. She also pointed out that the safer the playground is, the better for the child. Now, I want to rebuttal all of that by just saying this. Play is very important to development because of risk management and exploration. A child playing means that they are exploring their environment and understanding the cause and effect of taking certain risks. The more robust the play, the better chance that the child will develop the strong physical and or mental barriers to external elements. Playing has the added benefit of discovery. This is an area of play that many people look over and they don't consider, but inadvertently help foster occasionally. Older playgrounds, quote unquote, were nothing more than 2x4s and hammers. While the idea of a playground being nothing but construction equipment may seem crude, it actually helps a child explore, discover, and understand risk better than modern playgrounds. Since these areas were not developed, it meant that children had full autonomy to make whatever they wanted to. Tools and scrap metals lying around give children the ability to discover their purposes, explore creative ideas of building something from nothing and understanding the risk of injury if not done carefully. Modern places are not made to do anything but be a safe place for children to exercise. This doesn't mean that modern playground equipment doesn't foster the aforementioned characteristics, but they simply were not designed to. Modern playgrounds are colorful and already constructed and have minimal risk associated with them. Old places of play were rather dreary and bland. This kind of served as a canvas for children's imagination to paint over. It's obvious that an artist has created the concept of modern playgrounds, so there is no need for a child to create anything, new. Rather, they implement their creative idea on top of the original artist's playground concept, i.e. turning a slide into a waterfall or a chain bridge into a spaceship. Since the modern playground is pre-made prior to children using it, it takes some of the fun out of it. Every piece of a playground is made to be used for a single purpose, instead of it just being a tool for a child to decide a purpose for. Modern playgrounds have very little risk. For a child, a child can fall several feet and get hurt or scrape a knee in a playground. But many times that comes from these external elements instead of the choices that a child decide to carry out. While a child is able to turn anything into something new or different, it doesn't mean that this is how all play should be structured. A child needs to be able to create something from seemingly nothing. This type of play is what truly affects a child's developmental process. And that's just roughly some of the things I want to say to some of these people in the class, because they go into such detail about how children, the most safe things for them are the best things for them, but I think that's totally inaccurate. I think it's wrong. Playgrounds originally were just these robustly ugly ditches, and that's where kids grew up with. It's how they understand all the cause and effects of life. They figure out that if you swing a hammer wrong, you're going to hit yourself, it's going to hurt. But a kid doesn't have enough power when they're using a hammer to necessarily break their hand. They're just going to get a boo-boo, and mom will, come kiss it, or they suck it up. That's the better part of growing up. I remember learning a lot of different skills and different abilities growing up from playgrounds. But nowadays, playgrounds are, like I said before, just places for kids to burn energy and for mom and dad to sit back and relax and watch the kids kind of have fun. It's not about developing skills. And a point I mentioned before was about people doing things inadvertently. So even the old playgrounds, they were never designed to foster these developments. It wasn't until decades, heck, maybe 100 years later, that they figured out that that's what these did best. But, now they see that that's what they did best, but they decide to go for these safer routes. If you give a kid a picture that's already pretty much drawn and halfway colored, they can get a Sharpie and draw on top of it. But everything the artist has put down before them alters and usually affects what that child's going to make. And they don't usually explore crazy new topics or delve into their psyche or their creative thinking to create something new. They're just making something different on top of something that was already created. And it's different than just giving a child a blank piece of paper and telling them, hey, here's a Sharpie, here's a pen, here's a pencil, here's charcoal, here's pastels. Go with it, kid. Run. Just make whatever you want. A lot of times it's going to be a blob, but eventually a kid's going to figure out a style, and they're going to start creating something different and new from all these other different kids. And that's the beauty of these old kind of playgrounds and the beauty of play when it's not necessarily safe. But the safer you make the play, the less risk is involved in it. Minimal risk is what a lot of parents want in their lives. And again, I'm not a parent, but I am an uncle to 12 kids. The less amount of risk you can put into play for a child, it's a low likely chance that you're ever going to get anything good from it other than burning energy. You want them to learn something, be some practical lesson. It's like watching an episode of Leave It to Beaver. Every episode's pretty much the same, and it just kind of wastes some time, but there's a story arc in it. There's something to learn at the end. That's kind of why people watch the show. You get something. That's why they've made it and put it in front of kids. Yeah, it just had some morals and blah, 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 teach the kids. But the idea wasn't to like totally put these asset development skills down for kids. It wasn't until decades later that we realized that show was doing that. But new shows decide to totally abandon that, which I think is wrong. But you can't always blame the kid, I see a lot of people do that. They just blame this Generation Alpha or wherever they are now. But they just blame the kids like, oh, well, back in my day we did this. You kids are idiots. You kids don't do this. You guys aren't understanding play. You aren't understanding blah, 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 blah. But it's not even so much the kids now. It's the parents. Growing up these days must just suck. Being a parent these days has to suck. In all honesty, let me tell you one of the greatest life lessons I learned growing up. It was from the book Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. I learned that the world does not owe me anything. It owes me no favors, and it rarely acknowledges my existence. In our uber, progressive society, young American children are brought up indoctrinated with the belief that we're all special or important. While we all are unique in our own ways, we are not inherently important to the world. This train of thought usually leads to children feeling self-important or entitled, sometimes leading to a child that loses interest and desire to explore and discover their environment and network socially because they assume they're better off, or perhaps they already know everything already. And that really affects play. It really affects the child growing up. And I agree that children are not disciplined in an adequate enough way as generations past, but beyond discipline lies the fault of the parent. Okay? In our modern society, single parent households are more frequent than ever in our nation's history. There are more studies conducted and published than I can count linking this social issue to fragmented childhood development. Without both gender roles present in a child's life, skills that are necessary to socialization and play are inadequate. And this is just how it is. It's like we give in to these kids. They want something, but instead of showing them what they need to do, we just give in to what they want. And you can't blame the child all the time. Sometimes it just comes down to the parent being a sucky parent. They're not doing their job. And a lot of time in our, progressive / modern society, it is just a single parent that can't fill both roles of a parent and, let the kid, put the kid in front of the automatic free babysitter, the TV. That's what my parents called it, the babysitter. They just put us in front of the TV and we wouldn't realize they were gone for an hour. That's just the way it is. Okay, let me put a disclaimer out there, though. I don't want to offend anybody with what I just said. I am not saying that a single parent is a bad parent, but that a single parent that cannot carry out the father and mother role, either by themselves or with help from an external force, create poor situations for children to develop properly. Again, just want to say that again. Being a single parent does not make you a bad parent. That's not at all what I'm saying. But there are far more single parents that exist than ever before, and the majority of those single parent households, they don't possess the skills required to properly take care of a child, or let alone multiple children, for any kind of development or being a good parent. But again, I'm not saying that there are single parent households are bad. Just want to put that out there. Another discussion forum for this psych class I've been taking for college. I know I'm kind of skipping around a couple things, but it's all coming to my mind right now. This was another discussion for one of my classes was concerning the gender imbalance in the American workforce. And students were claiming that women are underrepresented in certain career fields because of sexism that is enforced due to our culture indoctrinating the youth, and that biology has nothing to do with how men and women develop. Now, many of the people in these discussions seem to believe that the world owes them a bit of something because of who they are, because society isn't the way they think it should be. But let me ask you this. Do you believe that the amount of men or women in a certain career field is being held back by gender roles? I find it more likely that biology plays a larger and more impactful role than gender stereotyping in a career path. In my chain of thought, there is no imbalance of gender placement in careers. Our society is not held back by anything. Anyone anywhere is free to do as they wish and pursue what they want when they want. What we see in our economy and workforce is a free market. Men and women are consensually pursuing careers that fit their needs and desires. The placement of women in nursing and men in construction is not from sexism, but from, it's from demand and supply. It comes down to what someone is willing to sacrifice for a certain good. Men statistically are more likely to take part in labor-intensive jobs in turn for larger payouts. However, women are more likely to pursue medical or educational jobs because they're not willing to sacrifice the same as men. They're willing to sacrifice mental power while men sacrifice physical power. And yes, this is a generalization, but this pertains to a certain graph I'll get into later, that statistically, more men than women do this. Right? Not that there aren't any women doing construction, but there's far less women doing construction, just like there's far less men doing nursing than women. And there's a reason for all of this. It's for efficiency. When something's set and it works well, just go with it. For efficiency's sake. Once a pattern that is proven to work is set, it's best to follow that pattern. The pattern is set, this pattern for our society has been set more than a century ago. It's how our workforce is currently operating. So I agree that while growing up we're suggested and directed to careers that suits the majority of our own genders, but it has a proven track record of working out. I don't agree that this course of action is dangerous at all, like some of the students in my class seem to think, that this is a horrible idea and we shouldn't go with it. It's bad, 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 bad. But, if you choose not to follow a path that the society has set for you, that is your decision. That's on you. No one's holding you back. No one's really holding your hand. It's very rare you'll find a society anywhere around the world where you can't do what you want. And again, I'm saying around the world, but in my eyes, everyone's American in heaven. All right? Everyone's American in my eyes. Come to America, guys. Assimilate, please. Just, don't be crazy. But yeah, our society owes you nothing. But maybe you owe the society you grew up in something. And it's just the way it is. A lot of times we grow up thinking a society sucks and we never get around to that grow up phase, getting out of our puberty and realizing that maybe the society we thought sucked as kids is maybe a little bit better than what we thought. Now I want to get into a graph when I talked about this, statistically speaking, men do this and that versus women doing this and that. And have you ever heard of the bell curve? It's a curve that's it's shaped like a bell. It's split down the center. Both sides are symmetrical to each other. The left tail of the bell curve represents very low intelligence, and the right tail end represents incredibly high intelligence. And the center of the curve equates to an average IQ score, or average intelligence. Women actually dominate the center of the curve. The majority of the female gender is of average intelligence. But men, on the other hand, cover the whole bell curve. There are more dumb men, just as there are more smarter men than women in the center of the graph. And it's a very controversial thing to talk about and show people. A lot of people actually lost jobs in academia for discussing the bell curve, but it's proven that it's the way it works. The National Foundation for Science even backed the study to learn about the effects of the bell curve. But what I'm trying to say with this is that a lot of people think there's this huge imbalance that comes with the workforce or movies, TVs, whatever it may be. But it's not imbalanced if it's natural, right? We have more water in our body than we have, carbon, or we have more of this. Actually, we're carbon-based life forms, so there's probably more carbon atoms in our body than there are water molecules. I don't know that. I'm not a physicist or chemist or whatever it is these days. But what I'm trying to say is that things in life aren't completely balanced. Life is not yin and yang, all right? There's more water than there is land. There's more space than there is air. It's not yin and yang. It's not opposites of each other. It's not completely even. That's just not how nature works. Nature's brutal. It's the strongest will survive. And according to this bell curve, there are more dumb guys and there are more smarter guys than there are of just average women. So there's more average women of average IQ intelligence, than there are men of average IQ intelligence. But there are way more dumb guys than dumb women, and there are way more smart guys than smart women. So men make a huge blanket over the entire bell curve, but women, majorly, are normal. Pretty sane people. They just hover right there in the center. Now what this means is that jobs and career fields and television, stereotypes, whatever you want, that pertain more to dumb people are going to be cast a lot more to dumb guys. Because there's more dumb guys out there than there are dumb women. Just like a lot of roles and professors and doctors and high CEO jobs and things like that end up going to guys because in general, the male IQ is higher than the women statistically. It's not saying there aren't women. This is the bell curve theory. It's the way it works, and it's been tested many times, and it's just the way it is. That there are men, there are a majority of men on the far right. That I'm trying to say this without sounding like a complete bozo to women, but this is the way it works, right? The far right is very high intelligence. There are more men in that category than there are women. The far left is for very low intelligence. There are far more men in that category than there are women. But then in the center, for average IQ scores, it's just like a normal person, there are more women than there are men in that. So there are more normal average people out there that are women than there are normal average people out there that there are men. There are more idiots that are men, and there are also more smarter people that are men than there are of either of those groups women. But women make a huge majority of, or actually they make the majority, the simple majority, like 90% of full average IQ intelligence out there in the world. But this is why, construction usually looks at as a really dumb job. People who don't need a lot of intellectual power to do. It's dominated by men. A lot of doctoral jobs, sure, maybe there's a little bit of stereotyping that goes into that, but usually dominated by men. That's just kind of the way it works out. But I will refuse anyone that says that there aren't enough women as doctors, there aren't enough teachers that are men, because only now, at the age of 21, have I ever had a doctor, like an actual physician, that was a guy. Growing up, all my doctors were women. And that's, for me, that just was natural, was having a woman doctor. In my head, when I thought of a doctor, I always thought of, a woman. That's just the way it's always been. So it's not like it's ingrained in our culture or something like that. It's just the way things are, how you grow up and where you're at. I totally disagree with people that it's because our culture, people act as if the bell curve is unnatural and sexist or something like that. It's only sexist if you look at it in that light. The reality is that the world works a certain way. If it's like that, you just kind of work with it. Let it go. Life is what it is. Change what needs to be changed. But if something is working just fine, leave it alone. Leave well enough alone. Don't fix what ain't broke. I'm not sure what else to say to drive home the point, what I'm trying to say. But raising children with the notion that this is the case may lead to civil unrest or whatever in society. The way we raise our children defines a lot about our society and the way the future of this country will go. So don't raise all your kids, your family members, whoever it may be in your life, don't raise them with the notion that they are all oppressed and that the world is out to get them. Sure, there's a lot of things in life that aren't fair, but you know what? Life isn't fair. It's not meant to be fair. It's not yin and yang. Being a kid these days must suck, and being a parent these days must suck. And that's just the way it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. We can go back to different ways. We can test different models. We can raise each other up in better, more productive ways. But it all comes down to stop selling yourself short. Stop making playgrounds safer so that you don't have to experience risk in your life. Stop blaming, the fact that you couldn't get into the pre-med or whatever, become a doctor or something because you're a woman. Stop blaming other people for your problem and start taking responsibility for what you have to do in life. Not everything's sexism. Not everything's because it's not safe or whatever. Grow up. There's lots of things we don't agree with. It's just what it is. But anyways, thanks for listening to the Happy Cabbage Podcast this week. Hopefully you got something out of it. Remember, you gotta think independently. The show isn't made to give you some crazy new idea. It isn't here to tell you what to think. I'm just here to tell you to think different. Think critically. You don't have to agree with anything I'm saying. I'm sure I don't even agree with it. When I go back and listen to the stuff I'm saying, I'm speaking off the top of my head. I'm sleep deprived, and I'm chugging energy drinks or whatever. I don't know what I'm saying at the time because I'm going off the top of my head. I should probably write these shows down. But the idea is just to make you think. Be on top of your toes. I don't care if you agree with me or not. I couldn't care less if you did. Because it's not what this is about. It's about you getting mad at me for an idea, right? And then you come at me with that idea. And then we debate it. And we work out whether or not your idea is factual or not. It's about working out the kinks, getting the details all straight. It's about knowing whether or not you're being a stupid idiot or you're on the cusp of discovering something new for the betterment of our community and society. Thank you for listening this week.